that road, pursue the arm bar. Don't worry about, like, here's what I mean, like, seeing a little bit of this sort of thing where you're getting here, and you're like here, and now you're like, oh yeah, now let me go back. No, like if I got this far, I'm just gonna take your arm, right? So just make sure that it's let's make sure that when we're here, he's connecting his hands while I'm still behind him with my knee, and I get to make the choice of either dropping him into this spot or bumping him forward and threatening it. That's when I make that choice. That's the decision point that I have to use. All right? Now, what I want to do is, as quickly as possible, go over how we're going to get a Kimura, because this is like, and what I'm going to do is try to give it to you as conceptually as possible. Conceptually, there are two ways that we're usually going to get a Kimura, at least, you know, for what we're talking about today, which is like side control, sort of top. There are going to be different ways based on, like, for instance, if you're in a seated guard, sure, you can get like Kimuras and roll. That's a whole seminar by itself. Then there's Kimuras from the bottom, which is like guard, half guard type scenarios. That's a little bit different. So, you know, the principles for what we're dealing with today are when I'm in a passing scenario, I've gotten to side control, or I'm almost there, and your opponent is going to do one of two things generally to defend side control. They're either going to do this, all right? So that's one way that I'm going to attack the Kimura, or they're going to underhook me, and they're going to start to come up. Those are really the two things, like, those are pretty much the only things that people are going to do in this position. You're either framing and hip escaping and trying to get back to guard, or you're coming up on your wrestling with an underhook. Both of those methods are going to lead to the Kimura in slightly different ways. I don't know if we have time to get to both as far as teaching the details. So what I'm going to try to do is give you the option of one or the other based on what you face the most, what type of game that you play. If you find yourself getting here and you don't really give up the underhook, you're good at getting here, this is the Kimura entry you want. However, if you play a little bit more of a loose style and people underhook you and you're the type of person who does this kind of stuff, spin behinds, then you're going to go over a different kind of Kimura entry. So let's start with this one because it's less dynamic, and if we have time to get to the other one, we will. So generally speaking, I know I taught it from here, but that was just for ease. You will almost never get a Kimura on this bottom arm in this scenario, unless your partner chooses to turn. And then you're going to be able to get the grip relatively easily, right? So that's just kind of a different scenario because that's something that our partner is choosing. This is something we can choose. So we're going to have our cross-face pressure usually. We're going to have an underhook under this elbow. That's something that is generally going to be a given if I'm controlling this position correctly. I'm going to be live toes. Now, when I want to attack this arm, I'm going to have to bring my arm around here like this. But what I want to make sure first is that this arm is trapped. Now, this is actually a detail that I picked up recently from watching Rafa Mendes, and he shows an entry where he makes sure that he traps the arm here underneath his chest, right? And that's a really good detail that I didn't used to use very much, but I think is really useful. This arm here is coming up underneath of the armpit, underneath the triceps, to create this internal rotation of the shoulder and this elbow separation. At the same time, my other arm is going to reach underneath his wrist, like this. So palm up grip. You can use your thumb here. And this, remember I was talking about grabbing into that divot between the radius and the ulna? That's kind of what I want to do so I can create this rotation, all right? So here, I'm going to start to come around. And before I do that, I'm just going to make sure that my chest comes up on top. So his arm is stuck in here like a chicken wing. Arm comes around, and I'm capping off that shoulder while I reach here like this. And I'm just going to start to move to north-south and start to affect the Kimura control, all right? So let's do this because I really want to get to the finish. And we're going to be able to finish the Kimura from here with relative efficiency. All right? So hopefully this won't take too long. Underhook, cross-face pressure. I'm just going to bring my chest on top, so I'm just going to bump. Come around, go under the armpit. This hand reaches, grabs the wrist as low down as I can get it. And I start to, like, notice how Troy's already connecting his hands? He has to. Just to anticipate a question, like, what if I try to walk this way and his hands are separated? Well, then I'm going to take the Kimura. So he's going to have his hands connected. That should be a given in the position. And I'm going to be able to walk to the north-south. So I'm under, I walk to the north-south, I slip this all the way in. I'm rotating his wrist, create that internal rotation. And if I wanted to, I'd just be going right to this. So if you ever feel like you can't approach the grip, don't worry about it. That's why the control is more important than the Kimura itself. 1, chest, under, under. Start to walk north-south, start rotating this, connect your hands. Sorry, it comes on pretty hard. So if you're doing this rotation, it comes on pretty hard, the pressure, so be gentle with it. All right? Does anyone need to see that again?
Yes.
Sure. So I'm assuming that you can all get here. All right? Bring your chest over top. You can use your chin here additionally to keep the arm trapped. Now I can release this and come up underneath. I'm still keeping this trap between my chest and my forearm. My hand reaches under and finds his wrist, and then I start walking to the north-south, keeping my chin over top, keeping my chest really tight, pulling him onto his side, and then locking up the Kimura control. So I'm pulling him onto his side with this lever. Like that. I'm not staying here and trying to weave my arm in. I use this foot for base, and I drive him onto his side, start to attack the Kimura control. All right, let's give that a try, guys.